Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Julia Alexander. Julia is the co-founder and chief product officer at ExecOnline. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Julia, let's start with yourself, please. Could you give us a bit of background of your journey in technology, from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to the idea behind ExecOnline?
Great, I would love to. I'm based here in Washington, D.C., but I'm originally from New York City, and my family is a business and analytics family. My mother was a mathematics professor as well as a business person, and I've always grown up in a very analytical family. Tuesday nights growing up in our family was always a science and data night when we would actually do quite a lot of research and reading. And being an only child, actually had to give a weekly presentation on my favorite science and data topic. So it's something that's always been in my DNA, but even more so as we think about some of the choices that I made growing up in New York City. I originally had my first role out of college in investment banking. So I started out in mergers and acquisitions, learned a lot about the business world from that, and came to evolve in terms of learning and development by working at the chairman's office for that particular organization. And this is where learning and development and data came together for me. Though I do have a strong analytical background, a lot of what I've been doing since the early days of my career has been putting learning analytics together. When I left my investment bank, I was inspired by a political campaign to come to Washington, D.C., and I found my entrepreneurial bent through that political campaign and the work that I did in Washington and a few earlier startups, one of which I was a chief product officer for, and our current CEO of our current business, my current co-founder, also was the head of that business. So that business, the one before ExecOnline, was a data and analytics business that helped companies expand internationally. And that was certainly during a time when we had very strong analytical needs for companies to understand how to grow internationally. So with all of that said, I came in a sort of entrepreneurial way with this background of wanting to help companies grow, helping analytics professionals grow in their careers, but then wanting to put that together with my passion. And that comes to really ExecOnline. 10 years ago, our co-founder, Stephen Bailey, who again was the CEO of our last business, came to me and said, we've been doing so much hardcore work with companies, analytics, data, business sort of BI decisions. What if we took all of that work and put it to something that's really one of our key missions and our key passions, which is learning? And at the time, again, this was about 10 years ago when we co-founded the company. At the time, very few companies, almost none, were doing any type of learning online. In fact, when we would go talk to companies about whether they wanted to consider online learning, most of them considered online learning to be inferior and really not even worth your time. How could anyone learn online was something we heard quite often. So we co-founded ExecOnline, and ExecOnline is an enterprise learning development platform. We partner with about half the Fortune 500 and the Global 2000 to provide the best online learning to tens of thousands of professionals at the world's top companies globally. We partner with top business schools such as Columbia, MIT, Stanford, and many of the other names that you will know to really help professionals of all kinds, leaders and senior leaders, grow and develop in their careers. And part of our mission, an important part of our mission, is one, to help leaders develop and accelerate their careers, of course. Really connecting all leaders to their future potential is our mission. But part of what we also feel very strongly about is that we have to, and it's really critical that we focus on diversity, inclusion, and greater representation in both data professionals as well as more broadly in all leaders. Unfortunately, we live in a world at this point, and certainly when we co-founded ExecOnline, where about 70% of the high potential programs that exist. High potential programs are the ones where as an executive or as a leader, you'd like to be selected for. That's where you have fast track opportunities. greater promotion chances, more visibility into senior leadership. If you're selected for a high potential program, that's a very strong sign that your organization thinks that you're on the fast track. 70% of the people that are selected for those programs, unfortunately, are selected by only one other person. What that means is that person maybe is your boss, it might be a mentor, someone that likes you. In a world, unfortunately, we have a lot of people are choosing people who are very similar to them, which means that if you are a person who maybe is from a more diverse background, or also someone who may be neurodiverse, who may not be as socially oriented for whatever reason, any number of reasons that you might be on the fringe of your organization, if you're not part of that 70% club, your opportunities are limited. And that is a key reason that ExecOnline exists. We are using learning analytics. We are using certainly courses and course development to help companies gain visibility into folks that they're overlooking. And then also, of course, to provide those folks opportunity.
Thank you for that, Julia. Really appreciate the backstory. It was great to hear how you and your co-founder identified an avenue here to create a standalone business. And it really speaks to the success that you've had, listing out the number of companies that you're already partnered with. One of the things you mentioned there, Julia, was the use of analytics, which I'd love to spend a bit more time understanding how you go about using that analytics to inform these exec leaders on where they should be re-educating themselves, continuous education, but also the trends, what's happening broadly in the market, which will then help you guys design education and coaching platforms.
Absolutely. So there are really two places that we work both with our participants on the direct learner side, and then we work especially with our companies and our organizations on the B2B side. So we work with heads of human resources, VPs of learning and development who are creating large-scale learning programs. And for us, we are helping to move from, in our view, a place of historic data. So most of the data that learning decisions are made from, both at the corporate level as well as at the individual level, are based on historical data. So as an example, if you had one of our learners, let's say a director of marketing at a major company, and the goal was to help this person elevate to the next level. A lot of the data that's currently used will be based on their past performance. Maybe their performance review from last year, or a project that they worked on 2 years ago. Or they might find benchmarking data that is similar, a similar profile to them, that's what's been successful. And again, this is our view is, while that is okay, it's ultimately not a very effective or forward-looking way to make major decisions about the investments that individuals and populations need in order to grow. And it's also not a very, as I spoke about, inclusive way to just base something off of, let's say, where someone was 2 years ago, all of a sudden deciding where they need to go 5 years from now. So as we're taking a look at a couple areas where we work with companies specifically, is the first is in data tracking and benchmarking. So we're going to help them understand, as they're putting leaders through ExecOnline programs, what are some of the key benchmarking and data tracking and benchmarking metrics they would want to look at. If we would want to take an example of diversity and inclusion, which is a very high priority for almost all of our clients, we're very happy to say that being an ExecOnline client, the data that we're providing you is most likely going to increase the inclusion and diversity metrics of your programs because of the awareness that we're going to be providing. So we're asking some of our participants, we're surveying our participants directly about their experience in the organization. We're also taking information and building data graphs based on the interaction of users within our platform, and also a lot of other types of metadata. So the first is we're going to help an organization do data tracking and benchmarking, where we'll focus on infrastructure to track metrics. We'll build that with an organization. We'll help them identify what metrics that they need to track and set targets. The second part is an example of a diversity inclusion example. We will actually provide data to organizations, both directly from their participants as well as across the benchmark of all of our participants and learners, is how they can effectively help remove bias from selection. So we'll develop learning journeys for that organization to help remove bias from selection. Again, going from not just one person selecting you, but actually having a data-based approach. The second is to help take a look at some of the other tools they might be using and where bias might be embedded in those, such as hiring. And then finally, we ultimately work very strong with companies on the design side. So setting goals and targets, aligning managers on content, and helping be sure that they're developing the right programs for their learners.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Given the amount of focus on data analytics and insights that you have with the companies who are signing up to this, there's obviously a lot of work that goes on your side to make sure you have the processes and the team to support all of this implementation. Could you give us a look behind the scenes as to what the current makeup of your data and technology team looks like in terms of headcount, the amount of people, the various positions, and what a typical day-to-day looks like for those guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have about a 30-person engineering team, and we have a data and analytics and learning team of around 10 people right now, and it is a growing team. So it's certainly something that we're continuing to focus on. We have a team that is doing a lot of business intelligence work for our clients. We're developing what we're calling a client portal, which is going to allow all of our clients to get allowing all of our clients to get real-time information about their individual participants, groups of participants, and ultimately to better make decisions based on what they're seeing so that they can grow their populations and have greater impact. We have a user insights function where we're taking a look at more into our individual participants and also really continuing to build out. That's a strong area of focus for us right now, is on the user insight side. And then also we have learning analytics, where we're building learning journeys and content directly for both our users as well as our participants. We also are really focused on our new and latest recommendation engine. So we've recently continued to expand our user-facing recommendations and are building even more algorithms to make even more personalized recommendations to users. So what a day would look like, as an example, if you're a member of any of those teams, is we're a very collaborative team. So we'll have certainly our product roadmap in place, and we have a number of releases. We're releasing really on a regular sort of agile basis, but we have a certain number of key releases every quarter. But a lot of this is really based on what is it that we're seeing in the marketplace? What is it, the data that's all coming in? What are we seeing users doing? What's the user behavior? We're certainly designing quite a bit around that. But a lot of what we're trying to do as well is to see what's beyond the standard fray. So our team members are really encouraged to spend quite a lot of time just poking around and seeing what might be beyond even what they're being asked to do. And there's a lot of creativity in the role for that.
Staying on the topic of theme, from when you launched ExecOnline, you had a really clear vision of where you wanted to take this. And obviously the first few years have been tremendously successful. When you start to look ahead at the next chapter of growth for ExecOnline, what are some of the things that you're excited about, the milestones you're working towards, and what challenges are you going to face over the next few years?
Yeah, we're really excited about overall the trend to an online education from where we started to where we began. For now, many folks consider the role of digital in enterprises to be a given, but in no way, really shape or form is that the case. And the reason why I say that is I think about this particular transition that we're in, very similar to a file cabinet. So for those of you who might remember the old school file cabinets with paper files that people used to use, there was a transition, of course, from the paper file cabinets to our desktops and files. And then, of course, we're so far beyond that to the cloud and any other number of ways that we're working on structuring the data. That's a similar transition to where we are in online learning. We have, over the last 8 to 10 years, effectively transitioned much of the historic stayed in-person learning to online. That being said, a lot of the learning looks very similar to what you would have in a classroom. It's mostly not only at ExecOnline. Actually, we have a number of really innovative formats that we're currently working on, which I'll talk about in a second. But really, most of it is very classroom based. It still feels very similar to a classroom. What we really see is a reimagining of the learning experience in this next phase of online learning in the enterprise for companies as well as for leaders. So we don't see a world in which you'll be passively sitting and watching videos and even doing sort of basic information, which is what a lot of providers are doing. What we're trying to do right now is continue to go to the next level of building a more exciting data graph and a data sets so that we can provide both a more engaging user experience as well as new and fresh ways to think about how people learn, because that's ultimately what we are really on a mission to do, is to change not only how organizations learn, but also how individuals learn.
With all of those exciting developments and the plans for improvement into the industry as a whole, but specifically at ExecOnline, I would imagine you're going to need to continue to add and grow out the team. Focused on data science, analytics, and the engineering aspect, what opportunities are there going to be for people who are interested in the work you're doing and the industry to come on board and join you on this mission?
I think if you're an individual that really cares about learning, if you're an educator or someone who's really thinking about how individuals and organizations learn, then ExecOnline is certainly a strong fit for you. We are working with organizational learning, how companies are developing and growing their capacity to learn, as well as individuals who are learning. So for us, it's a new frontier. In online learning, we've pioneered the first phase of this market, and we're not an organization that sits on our laurels. We're ready to pioneer the next phase, and if that's something that is of interest for you, it's absolutely a lot of opportunity in ways that are known as well as in ways that are not known. As I mentioned, we're doing a lot on neuroscience right now. If that's an area for you, an interest of yours, definitely. We have PhDs that are PhDs in neuroscience and social psychology on our analytics team. Folks are doing a lot of really strong work in this area as well.
Julia, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. Really great to learn about the backstory behind ExecOnline. It's amazing what you guys have been able to accomplish with the level of partnerships and engagement. And it sounds like you're only just getting started with a lot of new and exciting developments on the horizon. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at ExecOnline the best of luck in months and years to come. And we look forward to seeing what you guys can accomplish.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.